In the sphere of society building, we come across different sections of people moving in different ways. Looking at the whole social structure, these diversities carry a special significance. Had there been no diversities, human society would not have even arrived at the Stone Age, let alone the present civilization. We, women and men, are the progeny of the same supreme consciousness. Because we are both progeny of the Supreme, women and men have equal rights in terms of liberty and expressions of life. To us, life means living for a great cause. Life implies the endeavor to have the freedom to express one's potentialities in the physical, economic, psychic and spiritual realms. It means real liberty and not license to commit anything good or bad. In every sphere of their lives, men have either substantially curtailed women's rights or kept women wholly subservient to their own whims and caprices. At the dawn of creation, such an attitude never existed among primitive people. Man's diplomatic proclivity to spread his paramountcy by keeping women in bondage in the guise of social purity had never found its way into the brains of ancient men. That is why even today we don't find any substantial lack of magnanimity among primitive races in respect of women's freedom. By nature, human beings are not profligate, rather the majority of them are indeed peace-loving. In fact, all have a sort of predisposition to personal purity, and this very individual disposition keeps the collective mind pure. In spite of women's freedom in those days, of the amount of social purity that we find in the so-called backward races, not even 100th part exists in the so-called progressive ones. In the annals of human history, we do find women whose memory glorifies not only womanhood, but the entire human world. In philosophy and spirituality, social reform and educational pursuits, science and technology, they stand second to none. Women are found discussing the riddles of philosophy, solving problems of social and educational reform, and are inspiring men in times of struggle. They have their potentiality no less than men. The difference in natural and biological characteristics between men and women speaks only of coordinated cooperation, not of subordinated cooperation. Yet the annals of history depict the sad and painful episodes of women's exploitation throughout the world. To fulfill this sinister design, dogmas were created which led to psychoeconomic exploitation. Dogmas were cunningly popularized and women were degenerated to slavery. Psychic exploitation has been infused into the minds of women, and many symbols which are religiously observed are nothing but symbols of slavery. In many religions of the world today, women are not allowed to become priests in the religious hierarchy. Those who want to keep women subservient to men in this life by holding out a bait of affected sympathy and the false prospect of heavenly bliss in the following life, fail to understand that although such fake sympathy and the lure of heavenly prospects may be conducive to making women inert and servile to men, actually no real good will come to human society. If half the society is steeped in inertia due to superstition, the other half will undoubtedly find the journey tough going with this heavy load of inertia. In individual life, purity is equally necessary for both men and women, and to justify that necessity, real spiritual vision is indispensable. It is necessary for every human being to understand that to construct anything or keep anything alive, a close coordinated cooperation among the different parts is essential. The speciality is that this cooperation should be built in a warm, cordial environment of free human beings, and not on a master and servant relationship. That should be coordinated cooperation and not a subordinated one. It is very true that for lack of competence in certain spheres, women have gradually forfeited their rights or freedom, and for this reason, those who think that some special abilities are the only criteria of attaining rights really want to see women in the role of wageless slaves under the strong supervision of men. But is it completely due to their lack of ability that women have lost their rights? Haven't the overflowing emotions of their hearts also been partly responsible? Haven't they gradually surrendered their all, even their fascination for high social status, to their husbands, sons and brothers, attaching no importance to their own petty self-interests? Is it not reasonable for the society of men and women, and not of animals, to pay its proper respect to this large-heartedness with all humility? In the event of the accidental arrival of a guest at home, whose share of the meal is dished out? Who deprives oneself first when a dainty dish is prepared? Who goes to keep another's house, giving up their paternal property rights, regardless of what the law says? Are not these observations true of the majority of women in the world? Does the husband tend and nurse his wife during her illness as much as she does during his? Taking advantage of women's affectionate heart, if men want to stop the remarriage of a helpless widow and convince her that she will be reunited with her late husband after her death, then how can her remarriage be possible? The prospect of getting reunited with the spirit of her deceased husband after her death perhaps induces her to take to lifelong penance, and fast on every Ekadashi days. But are not those who force women to be subservient to their fantastic ideas guilty of unscrupulousness? The rights that women have lost today, at least so it seems in most of the countries of the world when put to socio-psychoanalysis, shows that women have not really lost their freedom, rather they have delegated their own destiny into the hands of men as a sacred trust and on good faith. If any agitation is called for at all, the initiative must come from the men themselves. Today, having realized the necessity of women, it is now the responsibility of men to gradually restore rights to women, which one day women surrendered to men in a weak moment of helplessness or in response to their heartfelt sentiments. One should not be even a little sentimental, while recognizing a simple truth. Nothing, except rational judgment backed by humanitarian considerations, shall be acceptable. Women should have as much unbarred liberty to enjoy the light, air, earth and water like children of nature as men have. In fact, it is not a case of granting rights to women, it is a case of recognizing their rights. But while recognizing women's rights, if sentimentalism be given any indulgence to, it may end in a great social disaster. To abolish dogma and liberate women from psychic exploitation, there should be free education for all women in all countries of the world. No discrimination in the social, educational and religious realms. The provision of economic and social security to all women. We stand to create a powerful, dynamic and upsurging social consciousness, especially among women, so that they are inspired to rise, abolish dogma and annihilate all symbols of slavery, and usher in a new era of coordinated cooperation and glorious achievement. Let women be the vanguard of a new revolution which humanity must achieve for a glorious tomorrow.